That's right when Air Jordans came out. And so it's like these kids were wandering around these like $125 plus shoes, and I had like Brooks or something like that for $40. You know, parents were like, well, we'll always give you the basics, but if you want more, you got to find a way to bridge that gap. Yo!
Nerds.
Well, yeah. Welcome to another episode of NüVida. Let's talk. Today we have a special guest, Kory MacKinnon. Thank you for having us in this church.
If people are watching this on YouTube, you see a bunch of orange walls, and you're wondering why. This is a church that we bought 4 or 5 years ago. So
yeah, it's crazy. And like the price we bought it for, we were stunned.
Yeah, like astonished, to be honest with you.
What's the square footage of the church there?
the whole church is, what is it? 10,000 square feet?
Yeah. And for like less than
12,000 square feet.
And like less than 200,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's crazy. Like we'll do a little vlog. We'll make sure to get some videos of the church, you know, to like add some context to this. But yeah, that's why you see the orange walls and the fire everywhere.
Yeah, we're in one of the Sunday school rooms or whatever.
Yeah.
So
cool. But yeah, most interviews, Kory, we find that, you know, you start off talking about real estate, so we kind of want to take a different angle. You know, we want to take it more into the physical activity and the importance of that, because I know that you do lift weights professionally, right? You did for a while?
I used to, yeah. I used to be a national team member. Yeah. So
how did you get into that?
Well, I think, you know, most guys, when they're young, they're always like trying to see how much they can lift, or like my dad had some weights in the house, and, you know, I guess that was more of a thing in the 50s, 60s, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger era, the Weider area, all that sort of stuff. So we'd mess around when I was young. And it probably wasn't until like grade 7, grade 8 where we'd actually go to my friend's house, and we're totally doing it wrong. Like I was already starting to feel like my back and stuff like that, right? Doing it improperly. But I was, you know, for being one of the youngest kids in the class, I was always able to keep up with the stronger kids. And then it was in between the grade 8 and grade 9, I had a summer job as corn tasseling. So all you do all day long is just like pull tassels out of the top of corn. And there was a guy on the bus, and he was like, yeah, there's a place in town where you can actually lift weights. The coach is like a 2-time Olympian. And it's like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So you should come on out and check it out, right? So I went and checked it out. And literally like the first day I was doing reps with, I remember it was 30 kilos, 66 pounds, just focusing on doing it right. And from there, I was never like the strongest person, but what I lacked in strength, I made up for speed, technique, flexibility, and like strength does come. And I got myself up to under the age of 20. I was gold medalist under 20, and then over 20, I was top 3 in Canada. Went to some pretty big game trials, like Olympic trials, Commonwealth trials. Never made a really big team. I got to compete a few times internationally. And then I made a comeback when I was 39, because I wanted to show my kids what I used to do, right? Yeah. And I got kind of pulled out of the woodwork as like CrossFit was exploding, and there wasn't a whole lot of great coaches around that had a lot of experience, right? So at that time I had over 20 years of experience, right? Or 25 actually at that time, because I started when I was 13. So, you know, I came back into the scene, and some of the OG people still knew me, and they were still in the game, but a lot of people were like, who is this guy? Where's he coming from, right? So, yeah, because when I was lifting, there was no social media. There's none of that stuff, right?
Yeah. Were you intimidated to go back in at like that age, thinking like you couldn't keep up or anything?
No, because there's like a master's division, so I was competing against people across the country and internationally at my age. Okay. So, you know, it's a lot easier when I'm competing against people that are 35 to 40 as opposed to like all the young bucks. Yeah, against all the young guys, I'd be lucky to place top 5 or 6 in the province, but you know, against people my own age, like I won nationals 3 years in a row.
Wow, that's insane.
That's amazing. And like in that time in between, how were you keeping yourself physically active?
Yeah, so when I retired from lifting, like I felt like I took the sport as far as I could, clean, never did anything that you're not supposed to do. My biggest supplement I took was creatine, which is actually really good for brain health and everything else, just as much as your muscles. It's a really good nootropic, but so I took, and my body was pretty beat up because it's not a natural sport. Like when you're holding weights like out to here, or like really heavy and stuff like that. I just wasn't naturally blessed to be able to bounce back from all the heavy training and stuff like that. So at the age of 28, I hung it up, and then I switched over. I wanted a new challenge, right? Because you kind of lose a part of your identity when you give up something that you've been doing for like 13 to 15 years. At that point, I'd been lifting weights longer than I hadn't been lifting weights, right, in my lifetime. So I was like, well, I want something different, and I was, you know, it was challenging because you got to think back to like, what do I really like to do? I've been doing this for so long. I was like, well, I really used to like to ride my bike when I was younger, right? And I had a when I had a paper route in grade school, I literally spent all my money on a $800 10-speed. And my dad thought I was crazy because we're talking about like 1987 or 1988, right? So like times everything by 5 or 6 these days. So spending like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on a bike when you're still in grade school is a little bit crazy. He's like, this is gonna get stolen from school and everything. I'm like, it's fine. I got this kryptonite lock. It's all good. So I used to bike everywhere, though. I used to bike to where I used to go on 20-kilometer bike rides. So I was like, well, why don't I get back into biking? And I still actually had that original bike, but it was, kind of like a little bit too old at that point. I sold it. Somebody else refurbished it and turned it into like a classic bike. But so I bought a good bike, and my goal was like, I was living in London at the time. I was like, it'd be really cool if I could bike from London to Sarnia, which was about 100 kilometers, and then knock on my dad's door and say, hey, how's it going, right?
Yeah.
So did that within like 3 months. I'm like, okay, there must be more to this. And there was like, there was like 24-hour cycling challenges. There was 100-kilometer rides. Then I was like, okay, well, how about I get into maybe triathlon? I tried triathlon. The swimming component was a big commitment. I'm pretty heavy, so I just sink. So I'm like, there's duathlons where you can just run, bike, run instead of swim, bike, run. So I did a bunch of those, did some half marathons. So I just kind of went from strength to more of endurance because that was a different kind of challenge. And but something about, I'm actually like a bit of a hybrid athlete. Like I can do a bit of either, right? Never like the strongest person in the world, never the best runner in the world, but I can definitely hold my own.
And is all that to like prove to yourself something?
Well, I think, a little bit. Like I always need to be challenged for sure, and I'm very competitive. So I just went in a bike race a couple weeks ago and placed first in my age category.
Wow.
But even when I was doing a half marathon, I'm a sprinter. In high school, I ran the 4x1 and that kind of stuff, right? But I'm like, if you train enough, then you can actually make the top. I was always in the top 20 or 25%, even in endurance stuff as well.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just it's a different challenge. It's more mental. Like sure, it's mental when you have to go do one effort that's really heavy, but it's also really mental when you have to go do something for 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
You literally, you're having conversations in your head, and you're basically just like, it's like what David Goggins says, like even when you think you're done, like, no, you're only at 40% of your capacity. You got to find a way to keep going, to just take that extra step. And sports are such a great lesson for life, such a great lesson for business. And I find that there's always a huge correlation from people that do well in sport to like people that do well in business. I just wish more athletes would actually do well in business, and instead they just go blow all their money, half of them. But there's some pretty smart people out there that are really good at like Magic Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal. Like there's so many athletes that have done very well in business too.
What are like the top 3 things that you can take away from like your sport and you can apply to business or mindset?
Probably delayed gratification for sure. Because like, well, you guys work out. Like it's not like you go to the gym and all of a sudden like you see results the next day. It's that delayed gratification for sure. Work ethic as well. And then just consistency. Like it's so important just to keep showing up. And most people underestimate what they can do in 5 years, but they want all the results in like 1 year. And it's usually not the way that the world works.
Yeah. Just consistency, time, keep on pushing.
Yeah, because some of it's like you just got to get decent at something. Like in our coaching program we always look at it, okay, in the beginning you just got to really fill yourself up with a bunch of knowledge because you don't really know what you don't know. Like you just don't know very much at all in the beginning. But at some point you got to translate that knowledge into actually doing something, right? So then you got to do, and you'll learn mistakes, you'll fail forward, all that sort of stuff. And then it's like, okay, now I want to really make a go at this, or really want to retire at this, or have a full-time income at this. So that's when you got to look at systemizing, optimizing, and scaling, right? So that's kind of like the evolution of most business owners. And it's like that in sports too, right? Like in the beginning, you're like, man, I should really go out and watch every single game or every single competition, watch film. You should always watch film, watch yourself replay and all that stuff. But then you just got to you got to like get in there and put in all the reps, all the training.
Yeah.
And then, it's going to get to a point where you got to surround yourself with the best people to scale or to really optimize where you were. Fortunately, I came out of the gates with the best coaches around. Yeah. And we're just in a great training environment. So it just helped us skip that last step even quicker in sport. What
sparked the interest in gaining that knowledge for business specifically now? Like when did you get into like the finances of stuff and economy and stuff like that?
Yeah. I think, my dad and my uncle were always kind of entrepreneurial. I think, growing up out of World War II, like I think more people there was just more entrepreneurs in Canada, Europe, everything anyways. And that was before all the big box stores came in, right? So there's more opportunity for the small person to have a business, more shoemakers, tailors, hairdressers, like you name it. Whereas now I just go get my hair cut at, what is it, Sport Clips, because I just go on the app and it's convenient. I just book it and I go and I'm in and out, and it's done and easy, as opposed to going to the barbershop waiting around for 5 other people in front of you. Like, why don't you guys get an app for this? But so I was exposed to business at a young age, and I saw my dad trying to be entrepreneurial. He actually had an income property. I grew up in a duplex. Maybe I'll drive you guys by it later.
Yeah.
But and my mom was like a hairdresser. She was always trying to make extra money. I was always trying to make extra money too. Like when I was younger, it was just like my parents had that conversation with me when I was 13, because I was on the school basketball team, and everybody else. That's right when Air Jordans came out. And so it's like these kids were wandering around these like $125 plus shoes, and I had like Brooks or something like that for $40. And parents were like, well, we'll always give you the basics, but if you want more, you got to find a way to bridge that gap, right? And I'm like, well, how can I do that? And they're like, you can do so many different things, right? Go cut grass, shovel snow, like go put your name on the odd job board, like start a little business, whatever. Like you just got to work. Trade time for money, which isn't a great trade, but in the beginning, I think that's where a lot of people learn, and some people never fully learn the lesson that you can actually get out of that and like, scale and leverage and all that kind of stuff. So but I was really, really exposed to it. So I always had 3 jobs in grade school, high school, but I was really exposed to it. In my first year of college, I saw an ad in the paper. It said, wanted managers, run your own business. It didn't say guaranteed earnings, but it said strong earnings, must have a vehicle, 1-800 number. So I called, because the word manager just really spoke to me. And I was working at, I'm going to date myself here, Kmart at the time, which is now, what's in its place. It wasn't Walmart, but like Staples and other things have taken over that plaza. And they told me straight up at Kmart, they're like, you've been here for 5 years, you're great, you're employee of the month a whole bunch of times, but you're never going to be a manager, because you're just like, you're not a lifer here, right? You're going to go and do bigger, better things than being a manager here at Kmart. So I kind of understood. So that spoke to me, and it was a student painting franchise. So I started running the Student Works painting franchise here in Sarnia. Did really well my first summer. I was like one of the last people hired, and I was still top 12 in the company out of like over 100 people. So that was good. Then my next year, I set my sights on being number 1. I fell a little bit short. I was like number 2 or 3. But, made really good money that summer. Like I literally made $26,000 back in 1998.
Wow.
I bought a sports car. Bad investment, by the way. You can, but make sure you have assets to pay for the sports car, not just buy a sports car because it's a depreciating asset. But that really just sparked the fire for being an entrepreneur, and it showed that like the work ethic and all the things that I already had, like you effort in, it results out as long as you're smart about it. From there, I scaled up in the company. I was district manager, general manager, and then VP of operations for Eastern Canada for like 12 years. Yeah. So it was a really good position. We helped to triple the size of that business over that period of time, and they're still going strong. And I come back as an alumni speaker, and it's kind of like awesome. The junior achievement, but it's more for university, college age students, which is awesome. So it's a proven system. It's been around since 1981. Highly recommend it to anybody who's a teenager, first, second year, whatever, university, college. Go and look it up.
And before that, did you have any experience managing people? Because I know that's something that's tough.
Not too much, because like I think now the school system's a little bit different. They want you guys to be more collaborative in school and do more group work and things like that. But we really weren't exposed to that until maybe OAC or grade 12 in high school, and then a little bit in college, but in the last year or two. So, but I've been given responsibility before. I had to stretch and get uncomfortable out of my comfort zone all the time. And I had a little bit of experience in sales. I did a little bit of door-to-door before I did that job. So part of that job was also door knocking. So, and I was just used to knocking on doors. I had a paper route, and like if you could drum up new business, you would really benefit long term. You got a bonus for every new newspaper client you got and stuff like that anyway. So I was used to just old school hustle and grind, I guess, right? Before it was even called that, it was just like, this is what you do to go make money, go make scratch. So
do you feel like that's like a traditional thing? Like, because I feel like nowadays that's kind of forgotten, let's say.
It definitely is. Like, I mean, there's a lot of, and hey, there's lots of ways to make money. I was just watching the interview with Mike on YouTube last night, Mike Van Hoot, and like he made over 6 figures on YouTube. That's not normal out of the gates. He is, it's kind of like all the stars aligned. He's great for the channel. He picked the right kind of channel, and I have a YouTube channel, but it's you guys have a YouTube channel. It's a lot more challenging when it's a little more finance and real estate and stuff like that, right? So, but yes, I think it's that kind of work ethic, that kind of hustle and grind. Like people just, I don't know, there's just more people out there that are lazy. They want that instant gratitude. I think a lot of it actually came from like Google, like just being so easy to search things. And then I remember when I first started dating my wife, she's a teacher. And I don't know, you guys have probably been in this system as well, but when I was in high school, if you didn't get your stuff in on the deadline, it was 10% a day, and then after the 5th day, it was a 0.
Yeah.
Right.
I
So
remember
that's just how it was. And so they prepared you in high school for the real world and for university, because if you didn't go to university, and you got to understand what the real world's like. So I remember this was, this would have been like maybe I was 25 or 26, and my wife was, kind of like ranting about work and stuff like that, and some of the crazy kids that she has at school, and she was like, "Well, we can't give them a 0." I was like, "What do you mean you can't give them a 0?" She's like, "Oh, they just passed this like no 0 policy this year." So I think when you guys maybe went through high school, there's like no, like you can't get a 0, can't get an F, right? Mm-hmm. Or at least that was coming into play. So I was like, wow, mark my words, this is going to change the work ethic of everybody, in the next 20 years. And it has, like, so now you don't even get that lesson until you're in university, right? So at that point, it's like, really, should you be learning this in your late teens, early 20s, or you should be learning this like as an early teenager? Yeah. I think you should be learning this stuff as early on as possible.
Kind of puts more responsibility on like the parent to teach them at home nowadays, especially, right? Because you can't really expect that sort of teaching from the school system. Right?
Yeah, and I'm a big believer. Like, hey, my 4-year-old daughter is going into school, and we're like, hallelujah! Like it's gonna free up a bunch of our time because we don't have to bring her to a play group and to a drop-in center and to a this and a that, which will save probably almost 2 hours a day between me and my wife and my mother-in-law, my dad, and all that stuff. But we totally realize that the best lessons happen outside of the school system. Like if they're not learning the lessons at home, then they're for sure not going to learn it at school. If anything, at school they probably pick up bad habits and bad language and just bad work ethic and all those sorts of things, because they don't really encourage even physical activity, right? I remember when I was in high school or grade school, we had the Canada Fitness program. Yeah. So it was like a challenge where you see how many push-ups, sit-ups, flexed arm hang.
Yeah, we did that too.
They did 100-meter dash. They did 1 mile run. You guys did that too?
Yeah,
that was an awesome program. I don't think they don't have it anymore.
Really? Wow.
I still got my badges and my stickers from doing it, right?
Yeah.
Super competitive, always trying to get the excellence level
top,
or whatever it was, right? Yeah, so when they don't have that, it's like, where the kids gonna? And I saw back then in the 80s, people that struggled doing that Canada Fitness Challenge, who didn't want to do it. There was only 2 or 3 people in the class that were like wimping out on different things. Yeah. They didn't really go far in life. Mm-hmm. Whereas the people that are ultra competitive and put their heads down, we've gone places, right? So it's a very good indicator, and lots of other countries do that because they're looking for talent for their athletes and stuff too, right? And I think maybe originally it was made for some sort of a recruitment talent program as well. But
do you find failure is a real good lesson to learn when you're young? Like before you, like as you said, like we usually have to wait till we're like now in university to get these failures or like that 0. Do you think it's really important to instill those into our kids early?
I think it is. I think it is for sure. And that used to be actually one of our biggest interview questions at Student Works Painting was, tell me about your biggest failure and how did you deal with it? And if I'm sitting in front of, I don't like to stereotype, but let's say someone who's come into Canada, they're just here and their parents are really pushing school, right? So maybe it's like an Asian student, and they're like, I don't know, I've never really failed, or I've never had a job before. I'm just like, man, this is going to crush you then, because you're going to be failing every single day. You're going to be getting rejection, you're going to get no's and all that sort of thing. So I think it's important, like maybe not epic fail, like when people have really big losses when they're young, that can be very devastating. But when you're just used to like these smaller failures, like I was told a long time ago that even if somebody says no, it's like nothing ever changed, because you had the no to begin with. So like when you got the no to confirm it, it doesn't mean no forever, but it means yes, like nothing has changed. You had the no didn't turn into a yes. So don't sweat it. Like you just got to be like Teflon, let stuff slide off of you. Don't let this. It's easy to say don't sweat the small stuff and all those different things, but it really is true, right? Like life is so empty and meaningless until you attach meaning to every single thing that happens. And the good thing about being an athlete too is you just get like a lot of reps like that. Okay, well, you missed the weight, not a big deal. Let's lighten the weight up, get a successful rep in there. I also used to golf a lot, right? So you just put another ball on the tee, and they say that the best golfers actually have the best short-term memories, right? You just forget about the last shot and move on, right? And you see this on TV all the time, how momentum changes during a sporting match or whatever it may be. It might be team-based, might be individual, but man, there's especially during COVID, people got put under pressure, right? And like no pressure, no diamonds, but it also exposed all the people that were maybe had a weaker mindset or more of that snowflake mentality, or they melt under pressure, or they just can't handle it because they're just not used to being exposed to it. I don't think we should put our kids in like hyper competitive situations when they're 5 or 6 or something like that. But you got to ease them into this, and they should always be uncomfortable. We always want our kids to go like, hey, you're doing cross country this year. You're doing this year. You're going to do a 5K run with me, right? So they may not like it now, but they're going to thank us later when, like, in real life, they're like, oh, holy cow, like, this is what real life is like. Yeah, real life is going to kick you in the face, and you got to get up.
Yeah, and there's so much value to a no. Like, I was reading 100 Million Leads, Alex Hormozy, like, recently, right? I'm not done the book, but he was saying how, like, a no even gives you an answer right in front of you, right? And then with that no, you can even be like, okay, I understand it's a no, but why is it a no? And then you learn, and you're still winning out of that interaction, right? So I feel like a lot of people have that misconception. And I did too, you know what I mean? Like, before I signed up for your program there, like, my mindset was completely different, right? So now it's like, well, once you open up that mindset and perspective, you really start to realize, like, I can really do anything if I want to. It's just about aiming and shooting, right?
For sure you can, right? And awesome, you guys are repping swag here. I feel I should be repping that's why we call the program Infinite Results, because I really don't want people to put limits on what they can actually do, right? And if we really are all limitless, and it's amazing what human potential is, and it's very cool to see that as you're exposed to athletes, top performers, business people all over the world. I've fortunately got a chance to be all over the world and do sports and business, which is very cool. Yeah. And when you figure out how to have a good trifecta in your business, or how to, like, that money is not the limiting factor, right? Money is just a thing out there. It's something in your tool belt that you need to go and build a business or grow a portfolio or whatever it might be, right? And when it can come from other sources and doesn't have to be from your own bank account, that's when you can really get that infinite return, those infinite results, and all those different things.
Where did you learn that financial literacy, and at what point?
Well, they still never taught it in school when I was young, but at least they taught us how to fill out a check, and they taught us what interest was, and basic accounting and things like that in grade school. But, I can still remember when I'd have money in the bank and you're actually getting like a 8, 9, 10% interest rate on your money, right? Wow. So I asked my dad, I'm like, what is this? He's like, this is interest. I mean, it's pretty cool. Let's make more money and put it in there. But you realize that it's very difficult to retire and get wealthy off of just interest. That's usually somewhere that you park your money after you've made your money, and you should always have your money making money. So it's better to have money making some interest, like as a loan. I do some lending and stuff too, as opposed to doing nothing. But you can make a much better return when you're investing into a business or a piece of property or whatever, and you can get that 20+% per year return, right? Yeah. So I guess I was exposed to it a little bit by my parents, and then working in the Student Works program that's all business based. And even my boss in that program too, he was buying income properties and house hacking and doing all this stuff back in the 90s, and before they even had a name, right? My landlord, when I signed my first lease on the day of 9/11, wow. He was burring before he was even called the Burr. Yeah, I still remember. I was in Kitchener. I drove down. He's like, you got to get down here to sign this lease. There's some really crazy stuff on TV. Or no, my roommate said that. I was like, Kory, have you seen the news today? I'm like, I don't really watch the news. He's like, there's some crazy stuff. I'm like, there's always crazy stuff on the news. But that was an exceptional day for sure. I pulled into his house, walked into his door, and right then the second tower fell. Right? Wow. And we're just looking at each other going, wow, the world's never going to be the same again. Travel's never going to be the same again. Yeah.
It's crazy how little moments like that, like, even I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting down in the library with like the grade 3 or grade 4 class, and we're like looking at the TV, and then we see the same thing. But it's like, it's stuck in my head, that moment too. Same
here. Like, same thing as you said. Like, I was in the library, and like they even put it on for us to see, and I thought that was kind of
interesting.
Wild, right? Because like you're so young and you don't really know what's going on, and then now, like, looking back on it, it's like it's ingrained in our brains forever. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a safe environment. You're there with your teachers. You feel like you're in a safe environment. They can help you understand what's going on.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I guess what made you go out on a limb and start your own company, and then, like, be that leader for many individuals?
For sure. So with in that corporate culture, when I was working in the franchise model and helping other 18, 19, 20, 21 year olds run franchises, right? It was going well, but it was also the golden handcuffs too, where it was getting to the point where I had a chance to buy in a percentage of that company, and I looked at the buy-in. It didn't make sense at the time, right? I was like, for that amount of a buy-in, I can go buy 2 more properties, right? So at that point, I also felt like I was getting a little bit pushed out of the company. They wanted me to get more results done and still pay me the same. And I understand there's always got to be some give and take, but it was just getting to be a little bit much. I was going to, like, getting married, having kids, losing family members, all sorts of things were happening, right? So I was like, well, I talk about having financial freedom, or like really time freedom, which is be able to make your own decisions and make your own schedule, like 100% for yourself, right? At that point, I'd been buying real estate for 7 years, and it was a great upmarket. It wasn't as crazy as it has been the last few years, but we were going up by 2-3% a year, and cash flows really well. And you could play the game of just rinse, recycle, repeat. So I went all in that day. I leveraged everything, refinanced everything, bought 3 really slam dunk deals, which were corporate rentals, and which don't come around very often. But I picked up some here in Sarnia, and they literally cash flowed $2,000 each, which was crazy, right? Like, because these people, they were like literally like, I'm here for 3 years. I'm the CEO of this one plant. I'm going to go house shopping. You're going to buy the house for me, and then I'm going to pay you for $4,500 to $5,000 a month to live here, and they'll pay for everything. They pay for the landscaping, utilities, all that stuff. So we just had to make sure everything was okay for them. Yeah, they furnished it, all that. So I didn't have to worry about furniture. I just had to worry about finding them the right house. Yeah. So that gave me the escape plan to leave corporate. And then once I left corporate, there were so many people coming out of the woodwork just saying, "Hey, can you teach me what you did? I want to be able to do what you did, right? Do you have a blueprint for this? Do you?" And my background was being a trainer, right? Trainer, coach, tutor. I was literally a pure tutor since I was in grade 4. So I was like, yeah, I can make a training program. I can basically show you what I did. But you also got to mix in, like, what's their personality? What's their learning style? What's their goals? What have they come from? Like, what's their reference points, right? Because everybody is so different. But if you just have a pantry that you can pull from, everybody's unique recipe that you can give them that recipe that they need, or that prescription from the doctor, whatever you want to compare it to. So I started doing that once I retired in 2013. And for the first couple of years, it was kind of like, I didn't really know what it was. I just knew in my head I wanted to have a tribe. My vision was having a tribe and helping people struggle less, because so many people struggle with financial literacy and being able to have that more financial freedom. There's a lot of government employees in Canada, and just that mindset of like, you got to rely on the government for everything. I'd never had to rely, being self-employed from the age of 19, I'm like, I don't have benefits. I don't have this. I don't have that. Like, yeah, just take care of your teeth, take care of your eyes, like, or pay for it if you need to. It's not the end of the world. Maybe you'll actually like take care of yourself a little bit more. Right. And, just put something together, and it's refined over time to the point where, and I'm just about just getting things done is better than perfect. You were wearing one of our original hats, which is, I call it the retro logo now. And that's our new logos, right? I actually worked with a branding company on the rebrand, but so now we're at the point where we're definitely the biggest in Ontario, and we're looking to really become, by partnering up with other people, we're looking to be one of the biggest in North America.
Yeah. And how many students do you guys coach in your program?
Yeah, at our peak, so we have like more one-on-one, like high-ticket clients. We got up to like 80 of those in the past year or two, and then we've also got like a lot of group trainings that we do, and a lot of events that we do, and all sorts of different things.
What are some obstacles you overcame when you first started your coaching program?
What was an obstacle? I think just always like letting people know what you're doing, like that reach, right? So I didn't pay for SEO. I didn't pay for it. It was really just word of mouth referrals. Getting on podcasts are actually great. Like, I think a lot of people underestimate the power of a podcast, even if it's just getting like a couple thousand views here and there. Probably just the biggest challenge was keeping up the growth. Like, we were growing like a rocket ship and kind of like building the ship as we were flying it. Yeah. Because if you're only trying to build to like where you are right now, then you're going to break that system or whatever. And like, you really got to think about 3 years out. I'm going to build this so they can't be broken until we're at thousands of clients or whatever, right? So just having to like, after like breaking it 3 times, I'm like, okay, we just got to think bigger and plan for this to be one of the biggest anyways, because that's where it was going.
Yeah. Okay. When did you decide to leverage social media? Because like, you have a YouTube channel, like you said, you have great reels. Your social media presence is really good. You know what I mean? So it's like, when did you decide to double down on that?
Actually, during COVID, right? So when everybody was like retreating and kind of like contracting, I was like, I'm not like, I went to school for this stuff. I'm a healthy person. And when you start to follow the science and the data, it was like, this isn't as crazy as people are making it out to be. Sure, if you're 80 years old and you're immune compromised, stay at home. But everybody else, like, I met my videographer, Caden, which I think you've met as well. Yeah. And I saw him get tagged in a reel of someone else that was doing videos in Sarnia, and I just reached out and said, hey, are you looking for any more business? Because I just finished doing a flip, and I said I want to make a sizzle video of that house, just like a 60-second walkthrough with music and just like showing what I did on this flip, right? Make it look great, because it looked great. Just capture the moment, because I'm going to sell it. So he did that video for me, and this was like literally in March. Like, I remember like we finished the flip, and I'm like, I'm going on March break. I need a break. Yeah. And we went down to South Carolina, and my wife's like, should we go? Like, there's this thing on TV. I'm like, we're going. Like, I don't care. Sure, there's going to be some kind of like swine flu wherever in the world that something's going to come across. But so we went down there, and then it started breaking really big, right? So we actually came back. We wanted to make sure the border didn't close. But so long story short, during COVID, we were just like, I don't know, we'll follow the rules. We'll shoot outside. We'll stay within 5 feet or more away from each other, whatever. But we're just shooting outdoor content. And we're shooting actually in this church, sometimes in this room, on the chalkboard, whatever. I'm like, let's just make video. Like, I got to get used to being on video.
Yeah.
So short form, like when you're doing 30 to 60 seconds, is pretty easy. But then I found it a little bit more challenging when you got to do like a 10-minute YouTube video or whatever. But then it's like, well, why don't you just string 30 to 60 second thoughts together and make more YouTube content. I guess for YouTube, I'm trying to be more of a perfectionist, but yeah, during COVID, I just said, hey, it's a great time to move forward and just gain market share and get more messages, more impressions out there.
Did you ever care about what people thought when you decided to double down your online presence?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I stopped caring a long time ago. And you have to, right? Because it's like, you got to look at the sport I was doing, right? I was walking around like a little singlet in tights, right? People used to think like I was a wrestler. Like, you wear a singlet, you're a wrestler. I'm like, it's not wrestling, it's weightlifting. It's like, oh, you're a bodybuilder. Oh, you're a powerlifter. It's like, not any of those. It's an Olympic sport.
It's true.
It's regulated. It's like, there's world records, all this stuff you can go after. So, and like we try stuff. Like we just, you obviously want to speak to your audience and you want to see what works and what messages. I just kind of know after working with people for 25 years, like, what people struggle with, the patterns, where they need help, different, at least I know different personality types. You can't say the same message to everybody. It just doesn't land. So if somebody's more analytical, you got to have some messages for them. If someone's more like go, 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 or someone more A-type, or someone's more warm and fuzzy, like you got to have messages for different people. And if you're not speaking to different people when you're on a stage or even doing like short reels, it's interesting. If people actually go watch the Snuggie, you guys know what the Snuggie is, right?
Yeah.
Go watch that commercial for it, and then you'll be like, oh, the Snuggie has a guarantee. That's talking to like someone who needs guarantees. Oh, it's warm and fuzzy. That's the warm and fuzzy people. Oh, it's like you can have like watch movie night. That's for like the social person, right? So it actually hits every single different personality, and that's why it's done so well, even though it's like a blanket with two arms sewn into it.
Literally.
It's really not big of a life blowing, oh my gosh, you just invented like the next like electric vehicle. No, it's like a blanket with two sleeves in it.
Yeah.
But it speaks to everybody's personality, right?
Yeah.
And even the slap, chop, whatever thing, like they speak to every personality in that too. So infomercials and different things are just a great way to show like how you can actually get your message out there.
Was there like a blueprint you followed with your social media where you're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if it kind of stuck?
Yeah, I mean, I try to do like different buckets, right? So I don't want to be too asky or like saying, hey guys, I got a thing or I got a course or whatever. I'll throw that out there once in a while. And people always tell me, they're like, Kory, you don't even do that enough sometimes, right? So, but I always try to have a bucket for like, this is what works. This is how you can solve things that you're struggling with. And here's some current event type stuff. And then maybe a fifth bucket might be like, hey, I've got this meetup or this event, or get on my sign up on my mailing list or whatever it might be, right? So, make sure you're following all that kind of stuff, because you don't want to miss out on some of those things. Like when we run events, they're awesome events. Like they're a lot of fun. Everybody walks away with swag. Everybody walks away with great networking, great connections, great takeaways, right?
Oh yeah.
So
the events are amazing.
We just want to get more people in the room.
I'll vouch for that. The events are amazing, man. They really open your eyes. I remember one time when you showed us like what is actually like what's money, right? You passed around $10,000 in cash. You passed around gold, silver, and everyone's kind of holding this, and we then discussed what exactly is this, you know what I mean? So the events are like they're real, and you walk away with like remembering those little details and how much of an impact that made to you. So I vouch for the events.
I can too many boring events, right? It's just like we want people to remember different things.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I feel like in order to make such a big impact, you have to be different. You know what I mean? Like you have to like not be the same as all your competition. How have you been able to adapt from when you started this to like where you're gonna go?
I think it's just from getting feedback. Like you got to get feedback from people. You can't just keep forging ahead and never ask anybody like, hey, how was that? What So I'm always doing a debrief. It's kind of like a military tactic, right? Like what do Navy SEAL teams do after every mission? They always debrief, right? Mm-hmm. So debrief with the team. We do it before we leave the site. It's really important. Like people, they're like, I gotta go. I'm like, that's nice. We got to do a debrief. Yeah. This is part of the deal. So debrief, getting feedback, getting surveys, and just doing more of what works and staying on top of the market. If like the world's always changing, so you got to be changing too.
Yeah.
And just kind of seeing like, oh, that's interesting. So and so did something. Like you might kind of like look at what other people are doing and just try to bring a little bit of that vibe in. But you got to put your own spin on it. And
Are there any tricks or like things that you use to manage your time so well? Because if you have so many people that you're coaching or even projects on your side that you're doing, how do you manage all that?
Hey, time management, great topic. So, because you can't actually manage time, right? Time just keeps moving forward.
Yeah.
You can't take the arm of the clock and go, no, like stop. So, probably the biggest thing that people struggle with is people try to do too much themselves, right? So they're saying yes to all these different things, and they don't realize that success in life is actually like a subtraction game. And I heard that during COVID. It was actually Tim Grover, who was Michael Jordan's coach. He's written several books, right? Relentless and Winning. I saw him on a live one day, and he just kind of like sort of reiterated that message. I'm like, because I always thought that way too, that like, you can only be so good at so many things, right? Because in life and business, I'd always just keep coming back to like, what's my number one moneymaker, right? I could try to do 5 different things. And Mike Van Hoot's an anomaly, right? So he can do these things because that's just how he's wired. Not everybody can be like him. But I think people can definitely get out of their comfort zone and say, hey, maybe I should try 1 or 2 other things, or I can always like vertically integrate. If I'm in real estate anyways, why don't I just try a few different things within real estate, right? Don't just always try to do one thing. But for people that try to take on too much and they're saying yes to things that aren't like a hell yes, like they're saying yes to like okay yeses, and maybe in the beginning you got to say yes to everything. It's like, when you're new, you got to go to every meetup, every kind of like event and just like fill your cup and know, because right in the beginning you don't know what you don't know. So you got to get some reference points. But just being able to say no and be able to say it kindly to people without like turning them off forever, right? It's like I've had to say no to family events. I've had to say no to like other okay business events because there was something better. Because whenever you say yes to something, you're probably saying yes to something that could potentially be better, right? So you got to make sure those yeses mean something. So that's important. Don't be afraid to eat the frog every single day, and know when your energy is the best, right? Like I'm not like a ferocious morning people. Some people are like get up at 4 a.m., get up at 5 a.m., go and crush their workout, slay the day, whatever. I just know like I'm more of like second half of the day kind of thing. So I need a gentle lift off to the day. Like doing stuff like this is fun. It's easy. I'm not going to go to the gym at 6 a.m. and start going for like personal best or something like that, right? So knowing when your best energy is during the day and protecting that, like protecting it and just like being able to shut out and like really blocking and tackling your time and doing time blocks, because sure, you can write a book 15 minutes a day, but you'll also be highly distracted and you're always like, okay, I got to get back in the zone again. So giving yourself long enough work blocks that you can actually get something significant done. And usually that's like at least like around 90 minutes, right? So 90 minutes to 2 hours. And if you're on a roll, just keep going with it. Like, give yourself a break once in a while, but just stay focused. Like it's not time management, it's focus management. How can you actually manage your focus of what you're doing? And there's so much, like our phones, right? They're so distracting. I just keep my phone on silent all the time. Unless I'm expecting a call, I turn the ringer on, but I'm going to check it 50 times a day anyways, right? So like I don't really miss text messages, but I don't need to be binged every time I get a text message, a WhatsApp, a Telegram, or Facebook, like so many different inboxes, right? I don't need to be like, because like if you're just distracted 100 times a day, you're going to dilute your efforts so many times, right? And it's like your brain only has so much bandwidth, so much capacity, so much RAM, right? And you're actually like, you're just hurting your brain's capacity to be a supercomputer if you're just interrupting all the time. So people have to understand that they're going to have like creative time in their life, and some people are more creative than others. You guys are creators; you're creating things. But then there's also times where you're going to be in manager mode, right? You get to just like do the admin stuff, manage people, check the boxes, make sure the dates are in the calendar, all those different things. But you can't do both, and it's hard when you're switching back over. So theme your days, or theme the portions of your days, and just say, okay, I'm going to do admin, or I'm going to do focus work, I'm going to do my superhero power, right? Like people have to distinguish between those things, and obviously delegate the things that don't make sense. But everybody's got to get in the weeds a little bit once in a while, or at least train the person. Like a lot of these people who aren't admin people, it's like literally the most painful thing for them to like pull and make a system, because they're not systems people, but you can do it, or get other people to help you make the system and then let someone else run the system.
How often are you like updating your calendar? Like, is it once a week, once a month, you're time blocking, or how often are you going back to that?
Yeah, so in my calendar, I have like a lot of repetitive things in my calendar because I don't want to have to think about it. Like I just know Mondays are going to be time with my team, right? So my team members, I touch base with all my team members, all my VAs, all my coaches, all that sort of stuff, get updates on Mondays. Tuesdays is typically like I'm working with my students. Wednesday morning is like a me day. Like I do some health stuff on Wednesday mornings.
Yeah.
Wednesday afternoon is flex, so I can schedule whatever I want. Thursday mornings is flex. Thursday afternoons is more students. Friday morning is my team time, and then Friday afternoon is usually like content.
Yeah.
Saturdays could also be content too. So I mean, I don't take a lot of time off either. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I need like all this time off or whatever. I need to have a full weekend off. Like I take half days. Like a half day for me is good.
Yeah.
As long as I'm filling up my bucket or my cup with things that I like to do, workouts, reading, personal development, learning. I'm just a huge learner. But you can't really make a life by just learning. You got to actually like do something with that learning and get it back out in the world, or serve people with value and help them hit their results and achieve things. Right.
What's your favorite book, or the book that's like, I guess, influenced you the most?
Oh man, there's so many great books out there. Trying to think of a book that really like blew the lid off things or knocked my socks off or whatever. I mean, Rich Dad Poor Dad, when that came out, there wasn't really anything else like that out there. I guess The Wealthy Barber was similar, but it was Rich Dad Poor Dad just kind of took it to another level and just showed you like the 4 quadrants of business as well, right? Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, great book as well. Think and Grow Rich, great book as well. Like there's so many classic books out there, and I'd say that those ones were pretty pivotal because I was younger at the time too. And sure, I read every single month, and like the books are, oh, that's a great new spin on things, or that's a great way to keep updated on some of these basic things, right? But Rich Dad Poor Dad was very interesting because there was just nothing like it out there at the time.
Yeah.
And whether it's a totally true story or not, there's a lot of I actually know who the real rich dad is. It's Keith Cunningham. Was a mentor to Kiyosaki. I met Keith, and I've been in his room and his masterminds and stuff like that as well, which is kind of cool. But Kiyosaki would actually sell those books in Keith's car washes. So Keith had a bunch of car washes, and he was like trying to get this book to sell. So he'd put them in the car washes, and I think they were also getting kind of pushed out through some MLM, like multi-level marketing type programs too. So it had it caught on, and there was proof of concept. And then I remember trying to get the book, and it was sold out in bookstores.
Wow.
I had to like put my name in the bookstore, and they're going to order it for me, and I had to wait for it to come in for a week or two. And I remember my friend telling me in college, he's like, Kory, you got to get this book. You got to read this book. And we're in a course where there's a lot of reading. Like we're doing like anatomy and all these different things, marketing, and a lot of stuff in my sports facilities recreation management program. But he convinced me. I was like, okay, fine. He's like, it's such an easy read. It's a page turner, and it really is, right? And it's one of those books where I could read it again this weekend, and I'd still pick up new things that weren't speaking to me before, right? So I like the books that like you could read them at different points in your life, and they're going to speak to you at different points in your life because you're at different stages, and there's so many multiple messages in there that will trigger you based on where you're at.
Is that something you do often? Is reread books that you've like enjoyed to like get more information, or
like I see these people are like, oh, I'm going to read a book a week, right? I'm like, that's great, but like, are you actually going to master that book? Like, so there's something about just going a mile wide but an inch deep, or you can go an inch wide and a mile deep. So I think it's important to have a vast library of knowledge, but it's also like, how well do you know that knowledge? So it's important. Like I mark up my books, I highlight them, I literally go through pens because I'm underlining so much, and I'm like, how many miles of penmanship did I go through in this book? I just went through that book. Or I have nice pens, so I just got to keep buying ink cartridges for it. But I think it's important to review your notes and to like pick it up. And if it's a classic, it's like, hey, you got to keep repetition is the master of all skill, for sure, right? So, and praise is the other master. You got to praise yourself. You got to acknowledge yourself on the journey.
How important is it to be surrounded with the right people? Because I know you were part of Tony Robbins' inner circle, right? So like, could you just kind of elaborate on that experience?
Yeah, I've done different inner circles, and I think it's important because when you think of the 3 components of success, right? You got mindset, skill set, and environment. I was taught this a long time ago. So, mindset, skill set, environment. Skill set's highly trainable, right? You can learn the right skills to do almost anything, right? I was not the most blessed, athletic-wise, and I went on to be a national, international athlete. Yeah. So, same with anything, right? You guys will meet people in business or in real estate, and you'll be like, how are you buying all these houses, right? Like they're just putting together the right playbook, and they're just consistent. They're putting the effort and all that stuff, but they might not have the gift of gab or whatever. I used to be super shy, man. Like you used to literally have to beat a conversation out of me when I was young, but I learned how to flip the switch and to be able to do it. And it's one of my first 2 modalities. It's not my first one. So after a day of like being on stage or whatever, I just want to zone out and shut things down. But yeah, so environment's very important. It's almost as important as mindset. So I'd say it's 50-50, environment and mindset. Because if you could have a really strong mindset, but put you in the wrong environment, you might not break your mindset, but you're not going to flourish. Yeah. Right. And but you put yourself in the right environment around the right people. You should always be the person you should always be getting pulled up by other people. Right. So if I'm a mentor, so I'm pulling people up all the time, but I also got to make sure I'm doing mentorships and I'm always learning and I'm always expanding myself too. So being in that program just showed me that like average income in that room was like 350,000 US. At the time I wasn't making that much, and just it got you thinking bigger, because you're like, really, like you have a business for, I'm trying to think of like what some of the wackiest businesses were, but I'm like, you're making that much money doing that business, like, and it's just, they're just like, yeah, we're just one of the best at what we do, right? Yeah. Because I just want to do cool things with cool people around the world. So it just got me thinking bigger, doing bigger deals, and just realizing that there's so much money in the world. Like last time I Googled it, there was $42 trillion in the world, and you'd have to, it'd take you like, I forget how many thousands of years to spend it, even if you're spending $1 million a day. Like it's just, there's so much of it out there. It's really just a concept, and you just got to go and channel some of it and put it to work and get a return on it.
David had the question of, so Jordan Peterson says that at the age of 28, men start to lose creativity. One, do you believe in that? And then also, how do you keep staying creative?
Maybe the average person, right? But I don't think we're average here. Maybe that has something to do with like testosterone starts to drop in your early 30s or whatever. But I don't know. I think I believe if he's just saying that as like a blanket statement to the average population, because at that point you really got to be like, okay, I definitely should have my career job at this point, and you're just becoming a yes person. You're just a part of the machine or cog in the wheel or whatever. But if you're curious, and if you're a creative person, because I believe that our creator created us to be creative. Like even if you're not good at art, like you're good at something creative, right? So for me, I'm kind of like an idea person. I'm great with generating ideas, names, branding. Like whenever someone comes to me and they're like, I'm struggling with a name for my business, I'm like, well, tell me about the business, and I'll just like come up with 3 names for them, right? Name of a book, name of a program, whatever. So if you're not actually exercising the muscle, then it will atrophy, just like anything else. But if you're constantly doing it, I mean, you got to think about when really great people are hitting their prime. I mean, Jordan Peterson's hitting his prime in his 40s and 50s, right? So, but they got to practice their craft. If you're not practicing your craft, for sure, you're going to be less creative.
Yeah. And maybe like depending the why that's attached to that, right? Yeah. Like for example, like I'm sure you have a strong why, and it's why it keeps you going, right? So what is your why? If you don't mind sharing with everyone.
Yeah, for me, it's like, I just want to make sure that I can impact as many people as possible in life and see them struggle less. Be a leader in all parts of life, right? So whether it's personal, financial, relationships, I want to make sure that I can impact people and show people what works, right? I'm kind of like an optimization, life hacking expert, whether it's in business, personal, whatever it might be, right? Because life is personal is business, and business gets personal sometimes, right? So they intermix, and if you have 50 hours a week for personal and 50 hours a week for business, at some point they're going to cross over, and you got to learn to make them work in both sides.
Yeah. Have you found your why's changed as you've aged?
I think so, right? Because like as you evolve, I heard this quote when I was young. I think when I was 25, my dad gave me a card saying that the first 25 years of your life, you're just trying to figure out yourself, and then the next 25 years of your life, you're really trying to help other people. Right. So in the beginning, I think your why is going to be a little bit more selfish, and it's more about you. Right. It's like there's different levels of actuation. Right. Like people have to take care of themselves first. Like it's hard to think about saving the world when like you don't know how you're going to come up with rent money that month or whatever. Right. So you should stay at home until you got some of that stuff figured out. It's interesting. We just came back from a 3-week trip in Europe, and I only saw like 3 homeless people there the whole time I was there. Yeah. And people just really took care of other people in the family. Or even if you're estranged from your family, you still figure out like a way to, like you find like a new clique or whatever, right? So different than North America. But yeah, in the beginning, it's going to be more about yourself. But I think when people actually start to get to the highest levels of actuation on earth, it's like when it's not about you. Like you take care of yourself, and you got to live a modest life, and you got to like live frugally and all those different things. But I find that you can't do that forever, right? The people that just want to live frugal forever, man, you're just missing so much of life's gifts and fruits and things because you're only thinking about yourself. I have to be cheap so I can exist. Well, why don't you use some of those skills to like, how can I impact like thousands or millions of people, right? Like my YouTube channel is, I don't know, I think we've got maybe a couple 100,000 views now, which is kind of cool. It doesn't have millions, but like just think of the impressions that we're making to other people. It's just going to keep growing and expanding and stuff like that as well. So over time, your why is going to be less about you, more about other people. And then it's going to become more about generational impact as well, and like how can I just impact. It's going to be bigger and more generational, right? So as opposed to you and your city versus like generational and like the world sort of thing. So
it's crazy you said that about Europe. We just came back from Amsterdam and we said the same thing. It's like I didn't see anyone, like maybe like one homeless person my whole trip in Netherlands, and then also like there wasn't anyone who was obese. You know, like there was a lot of bikes, people are walking and everything. It really shocked me because like coming back out to these parts of the world, you kind of, that's the norm. Right.
Well, the food system is very different over there, right? Like literally in Europe, like you can't genetically modify anything over there, or like the government will literally burn it to the ground. Like they're very protective of, and I geek out on all this stuff, probably even more than real estate and business and investing, all that stuff is like health. Because if you don't have your health, you don't really have anything. If you don't have energy, like I'm going to be 48 this year. I want to have more energy than you guys so I can outwork you guys and just, you know, it's not like an ego thing, but it's like, it's easier when you're younger. Your body is cleaner. It hasn't been a filter for as many things as long, and the filter hasn't got clogged up as much, right? So you can do more things when you're younger. I used to be able to drink more, eat whatever, and you know, eat McDonald's and still go work out, have a great workout the next day. I can't do that stuff right now because my body, like as you age, your body loses that ability to filter, and like your cells aren't as resilient and everything like that too. But if you don't have your health, you don't really have very much, right? And health is usually what they say. It's a blessing that's on a healthy. It's a crown that's on a healthy person's head. So you don't really understand it until you lose it, right? But yeah, over there you can't genetically modify anything. So I was over there, and we're literally being force fed by my wife's family for
Italian or
10 days. Yeah, Italian,
of course.
And but because it's all real food, it's not like grown for yield or for speed or for profit, or sure, everybody's got to make money as a farmer, but like over here we have genetically modified dwarf wheat that you can get, I forget how many days, like it's super fast, like how you can get this wheat and it's shorter, it's 18 inches, but you're just getting it and you can chop it and sell it quicker, but it's not good for you, right? It's stuff here is sprayed so they can literally bomb a whole field with Roundup and it won't affect the plant. Like the plant will still grow and kill everything around it, but it actually gets inside the plant too, and then it gets inside your body. You know, so it's just so different over there. You're eating real food. The soil hasn't been depleted like it is over here. They just maintain things. It's more the way it should be, right? And things have more flavor. You know, like you're actually eating tomatoes. Like wow, I can actually taste. And I think people would actually eat healthier if it actually tasted better. But instead, they're just putting all kinds of condiments on things and spices and all sorts of things just to try to make it taste better. But when you actually eat real food, so I always pay extra for organic and, you know, better sourced, you know, everything in my life, whether it's water, food, nutrition, you name it.
Is there any health hacks that you like prioritize nowadays?
Well, definitely, you know, because if you think about it, like when you say health, right, like what is health encompass? So it's like the air that you breathe, the liquids that you drink, the food that you take in, the thoughts that you think, and the words that you say. So when you think of those 5 different things, they're all very important. And so literally and also included in that should be the amount of rest you get too. So sleep is underrated. People don't prioritize sleep. I've always prioritized sleep. Always been a good sleeper. And I just know, like, you don't need 8 or 10 hours of sleep a day. If you need 8 or 10 hours of sleep a day, there's something going on with you. Like, you must be having some kind of a health issue, or your body is like trying to heal something, right? But if you're healthy, you should be able to get by with 6-7 hours sleep. Some people are anomalies; they can get by with 5. I know I've been tracking my data with my Oura Ring. I used to have a Fitbit for a couple of years. I need literally 6 hours and 50 minutes of sleep a day. That's my average. If I'm training hard, then I might need an extra half hour. If I just did a really like let's say an event or something like that, a competition, maybe I need 8 hours or something like that. But yeah, that's sleep is super important. Just eating clean, eating real food. Like they're not even calling like processed food anymore. They're calling it ultra processed or hyper processed food, right? Because it literally, like you take a piece of white bread, you put it on your tongue, it's literally in your blood system in like 3 seconds.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Right. It's crossing the blood-brain barrier and all these different things. So it's just crazy. So just eat like your ancestors used to eat. A lot of people think that they can. There's one diet for everybody in the world. There really isn't. Like, you should kind of eat for your lineage. Like, you're probably from a different place in the world than you are, and I am, right? So I'm Scottish, German, Italian. So I'm a mix of a bunch of different things. But you can actually get your genes tested. It's I spent like $1,500 doing that 5 years ago. You can do it now for a couple $100, and you can actually see what genes you have, because I know we're going down a rabbit hole here, but there's like, from my understanding, there's 6 genes to be able to process carbs really effectively into someone that can actually thrive on a higher carb diet. Most people are walking around with only 1 or 2 of those genes turned on. So they try to, when I was trying to eat like an Italian, when I first met my wife, I was eating a lot of bread, a lot of pasta. I gained weight. It just didn't make sense, right? So for me, my diet is more of a low carb, slow burn kind of a diet, just meat, vegetables, some fat, some carbs, but I got to earn the carbs, or I got to do a workout and replenish them. So just realize there's not one diet for everybody. Look for the golden thread though. Like there's no diet out there that says eat all kinds of sugar, sugar, live off crackers, like no problem, fast food. Like there won't be that golden thread, but the golden thread will be like, yes, eat real food, get well-sourced meat, because you're not just what you eat, it's what you've eaten has eaten as well,
true.
right? So if you're eating some really interesting, if people want to find a funny video, go on YouTube, look up cows eating candy. Okay. There's literally a farmer that was buying expired candy, wrappers and all, and just like feeding it to the cows on top of corn and all kinds of stuff that cows just aren't meant to eat. Cows are meant to eat grass, right? They have like all these different stomachs to process grass. That's what they should be eating, right? And hay and different things, right? That, not corn, not candy, not food waste and all that kind of stuff. So he's like, oh, the cows are happy, it's fattening them up and everything. So now you're actually eating that, like you're eating those, what that cow has become.
Oh, that sugar,
right? Yeah, it's just crazy. I understand they got to fatten cows up maybe in the last 2 weeks of their life and marble the meat and all that kind of stuff.
But like even like the mentality that cow's in while it's producing the food, right? It's like that plays an effect probably on what we consume as well.
Yeah.
So it better be happy cow. If it's stressed and depressed, then you'll probably get that energy too.
Yeah. Right. For sure, man. Our food system it's messed up, unfortunately. So I feel like I'm a modern day warrior, having to go and find like better foods, even if it's in the grocery store. The only good stuff in the grocery store is like maybe the produce, like the organic produce stuff on the outsides, and like finding that organic section in the grocery store, because 80-90% of the grocery store is just garbage.
Could you ever see yourself like relocating?
I could. Yeah, it gets a little complicated when you have kids and you have like parents that are aging and you want to be close to them and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, for you guys are young and nimble. Like if the country is crazy, or if you're just not getting what you want here, go. Other countries are open for business, open for people to immigrate, whatever, right? Whether it's crazy. Mexico, Costa Rica, like all these different places.
Especially like the new trends that like COVID. Like that we saw, right? Like people going to Texas, Florida, right? I kind of want to stay on that topic in regards to like, how did you change your real estate investment strategies, right? Because it seems like you had to get creative in a lot of different ways. Like right now we're in your church, right? So could you just explain about the different types of strategies that you have used throughout your career and how you're kind of changing them nowadays?
Sure. So, you got to look at the fundamentals of real estate, right? And I think a lot of people get caught up in a lot of the shiny objects when it comes to real estate investing, and they forget about the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are about being creative. You got to learn how to put deals together. You got to make sure that you're actually making money on the buy. Making money on the buy is more important than location, which a lot of people talk about, right? But, you just got to find that, okay, well, if people don't agree with that, it's like, well, you could have the best location in Manhattan, but if you overpaid for it, how are you going to make money on anything, right? You're going to sell for a loss, and, you just won't ever be able to make much of a return. So when you look at some of those fundamentals, and you also have to see where you are in the market cycle too, like not everything works in every single market. Not every strategy works at every single point in the market cycle. So you got to kind of look at the city that you're in, the experience that you have. And a lot of people try to skip too many steps, right? And they're like, okay, well, I see what, me or Kellen or Mike or you name whatever person who's been doing real estate for over a decade, Dylan, what they're doing. And I'm just going to go right to what they're doing. As opposed to like, you don't know their backstory, right? Like people don't know that, like I grew up in a duplex, so I was super comfortable with rentals, and that's why my first deal was a sixplex. Just because I was like, well, I could buy a duplex or I could buy a sixplex. Like it just means a little bit more of a down payment, but I was already comfortable with it. I was actually already living in that house for 4 years before I bought it, so I already knew the ins and outs of that house and like what made it tick and who the tenants were and all that stuff. So I was ready for that. But once you get good at construction, managing budgets, knowing your numbers, then you can level up your skills, right? And for me, it was just a natural evolution of like, I was doing the BRRRR before it even had a term. And doing the BRRRR involves managing construction and numbers and hitting your budget on time, on budget effectively. So if you know how to do that, then you can do a flip. But you still got to make money on the buy, right? On any burr or flip to be profitable. So that's important. And then for me, it was like, okay, well, I've done this wash, rinse, repeat. So I'm either going to go for bigger multiplexes, or I'm going to go for, well, what are the bigger guys doing, right? They're buying land, and they're also buying buildings like this and converting them. So it's just like another higher level of specialized skill or expert skill that you can take and evolve. And some people go right towards development because they're like, I'm just going to niche down on that. And it might take longer to get a deal. It might take longer to make their first million. But at least they're niching and they're becoming an expert at something. Yeah. Because that is a highly paid skill as well, specialized skill.
And even like Airbnb or like furnished rentals, right? I remember when you were discussing those things, it was like a couple years ago, I didn't even know that was a thing. A short-term rental furnished for 6 months, you'll make more money per month. So that might like hedge against inflation or interest rates, right? So it's just super interesting how there's a lot of different ways to utilize an asset, right?
Yeah, and you got to make sure like the trend is there. Like when people are trying to like make a trend, I'm like, man, you're probably going to, like, anybody that's trying to be a pioneer is going to get arrows in the back and they're going to get shot down. But if you can ride a wave, or if you can get ahead of a trend or ride the coattails of a trend and know when to get out of that trend. Like I got into furnished rentals. I don't do short term. I don't do like Airbnb, because I'm like, you got to think about what business you're actually in, right? So in the Airbnb business, you're actually in the messaging business, you're in the cleaning business, turnover business, customer satisfaction business, tourism, hospitality. And yeah, you need an apartment with furniture. That's the easy part. That's like all the other moving parts. Marketing, like you got to market it, get it to so many people. So for me, I didn't want all those extra businesses to manage, right? Yeah. I'm like, what if I did medium term? Because I heard this medium term thing was working. There's always, ever since I was young, there was always people that come to town on contract, or a salesperson that doesn't want to live in a hotel for more than a week or two. And it used to be even longer than that. Like before COVID, people would be like, yep, you got to go to like sales headquarters for 3 months and just like get through your probationary period and like literally be in the trenches every single day with some of the best people. And so we're going to put you in a furnished rental, corporate rental for 3 months, right? So I knew there was that trend, and it works in a lot of different cities as long as the supply demand is working in your favor, because there's always going to be people coming to town, and hotels are always going to be booked up. There won't ever be enough hotels. Build a hotel is expensive. To make a furnished rental, not that bad, right? Mm-hmm. So in Sarnia, it was blowing up with a lot of executives and plant workers and things like that coming to town. So I'm just like, well, I'm going to ease into this, right? And my first one was like literally I was going to buy a condo in a complex I already own one in. And my agent said, you know what? That would make a good regular rental anyways, but if you can get this thing furnished, just the basics in 10 days, I have a client that'll pay you twice as much rent.
Yeah. Wow.
And I literally just had a newborn at that time. Like, we'll figure out a way. Yeah. So we just got beds, couches, stocked up the kitchen, got a TV in there. We didn't worry about art on the wall, knickknacks, any of that stuff. And they're like, yeah, well, you can do that over time. They're fine if you get that done in the next month or two. Right. So that was my first taste of it. I was like, wow, that was actually one of my best ones ever. Yeah. So I kind of got spoiled. But that double rent stayed there for 18 months.
Wow.
And then I bought another one, basically someone that was getting out of the business. So it was fully furnished. It was turnkey. And when I got my tenant in there, he's like, I'll be here for 7 years. I'm like, you don't have to. But because it was like his company paying for it, he's like, we're setting up shop. We're going to be here for a long time. This is my second home away from home. He's going on his 8th year right now.
Wow, that's amazing.
So you get a couple deals like that just gives you proof of concept, and you start doing well with it. And then from there, I was just like, well, let's experiment a little bit, right? I had some units that were really big units. I'm like, this would make a great furnished unit just because of the size of it, right? Mm-hmm. People love space. And then or some of my multis in London, like somebody moves out, I'm like, this is the coolest apartment in the house, and it's well soundproofed. Or it's really small, but I could still make a cool small furnished unit. Yeah. So we put one in there and we got extra rent. So I think it's something that people shouldn't be afraid of. You can dabble in it. But so many people are just afraid to take a risk. But you just got to learn how to stretch a dollar, do it frugally, a little bit more chic on the cheap. I think you guys are looking at getting into like some furnished rental, right?
So we're almost done the we're gonna do the we have a duplex in London, Ontario, so we're gonna do the upstairs as an Airbnb, and then Claudia and I are gonna house hack that main floor. Yeah. But the interesting thing is that the basement is kind of like separated as well with a separate entrance, so we might just rent that out to the podcast room.
There you go. Yeah. Make sure you got some orange walls and some
and some flames on the wall, right?
But there's always been a demand for something furnished and something different, right? Even if it's like maybe furnished student rentals for like international students, they'd love that because then they just got to bring their clothes and their books, and that's it, right? So Just don't go crazy with it. Like we got 15 of them, and we might dabble with a couple more. Some of them are really high end, some of them are very entry level for the workers. So, but we've always been able to put them together pretty economically, right? We got to look for sales. One of the best things that, find your who, right? Like find someone that can help you design it. Shout out to Pink Wall Designs. They spoke at my last event in June. They're great at this, right? They'll literally design everything for you, for your unit. Or just find yourself a thrift shopper, like someone who's like, they haven't been to school for interior design, but they have a great eye for interior design. And like your beautiful wife, right? And they can just do it, right? Because they've seen like the magazines and the other Airbnbs, and they've stayed in a lot of them, and they just know what works, what doesn't work. I know what looks good. I just have a good taste for things, but I don't know how to put it all together. I don't know all the websites and all the stores to go to. But you show me 3 options, I'll be like, yeah, that's the winner right there. Let's go with that. So find your who. Get a thrift shopper, get a designer. You don't have to pay full price for all these different things. Like my thrift shopper was literally finding me like amazing leather couches that looked like they were hardly ever used for like $500, $800, regularly 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. The only things that we usually buy new are the mattresses, and you got to get a good smart TV, or else people just won't enjoy their experience there if they don't have a smart TV. You have a TV with like a Fire Stick, people are like, what's going on? This is crazy.
What are some of your favorite strategies, I guess, in this economy right now? Interest rates are high.
Interest rates are high, so you need to go for like higher yielding strategies. And I'm always about higher yield. Like I don't know why people just get into like the most basic entry level strategy or something that just barely works, right? So I always go for, you can also stack strategies too. So make money on the buy, go do a burr of a multiplex. Then you could always put like a furnished unit in one of them, in the nicest, best unit. Student rentals are working well, because what happens in a recession, right? People go back to school. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough knowledge. I better go back and get a second degree. Or it's like, I'll wait for the economy to improve and I'll just go upgrade my schooling. So people go back to school during a recession. So student rentals work well. And especially if you have like a better product, like it is crazy when you're in some of the wealthier cities, like Western or where Claude's go to school.
Queens.
Yeah. I remember going to, because I used to be a campus recruiter, right? And I went to campus and I was looking around at the parking lot. I was like, wow, these teachers drive nice cars, man, like BMW, Mercedes. And my friend was like, Kory, what the hell are you thinking? These are the students here, man. I was like, damn, okay, a lot of money. They're coming from money. So they'll pay, like the difference between them paying like $800 for a room and $900 for a room, the parents don't really sweat that stuff. They just want their kid in the nicest, safest place possible. We literally we just finished renovating a 2-bedroom, 2-story, it's 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom loft apartment in London. I thought this would be great for a couple, right? No, it's like the person who ended up renting it was like, they're from out of province. They just wanted like a really good place for their daughter. I'm like, you guys are going to pay $1,700-$1,800 for one person in here. I mean, she can get a roommate, but she probably won't. They're just going to pay the bill. That's free, right? So student rentals work well. Rent to own works well, because you can basically get past the rougher part of the economy, because you're kicking the closing date down the road. It's like a renting with the option to purchase it in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So rent to owns work well. Furnished rentals work well. I mean, too many people are trying to rely on like, I need every single penny this Airbnb is going to make, right? But no, if you make money on the buy, and if you could actually make it work as a regular rental anyways, and then you do a furnished rental in there, it's just extra cash flow, right? And you don't have to have it rented every single day, every single week, every single month, right? Our furnished rentals are on average stay full 10 and a half, maybe 11 months of the year. So there's always going to be some vacancy in there, and we don't really mind. Right. What else works these days? Flipping can still work. You just got to make sure you found the bottom of the market. If you're trying to flip and the market's going down, like it's just very, very challenging.
It's like catching a falling knife in a way.
Yeah. I mean, if you had $100,000 worth of profit, maybe that gets whittled down to 50 or 25. But I think flipping, people need to be mindful of flipping. It's going to start to come back around where buying multis makes sense again, right? Because now you find the bottom, you start to make your way up. So as interest rates go down and values go back up again, that'll play in your favor. Right. So, but I like rent to own student properties, furnished, the burr, just even wholesaling, like making money on the buy works in any market.
Yeah.
You just got to make sure you always have enough of a spread and you're negotiating really well.
And then also a storage facility. I saw that as well. You've been operating a successful storage facility for the last year, right?
Yeah.
That's a different route.
Yeah, I try not to mention that too much because like people just like get shiny objects and they're like, oh yeah, I got to do storage, right? But you got to think of like how many storage facilities are there actually in Canada? There's way less than like Maltese, for example. But I was literally looking for storage for like 4 or 5 years, and I'd been to like storage conventions and binging on information on it. So I was kind of learning and becoming an expert behind the scenes before I even bought one, right?
Yeah.
So literally as soon as I got the opportunity, I knew within an hour. I drove out there, I studied the competition, I saw the facility because there wasn't really good images on Google Street View. Like, this is a no-brainer. Like, so we were able to act fast and tie it up, and now we're just maximizing it, right? So we're raising rents, we can add extra units, we can add extra sea cans, we can add extra parking spots. Like, the thing, it makes money.
And you even have like RVs parking there and making money too, right?
Yeah, RVs parking there. We're probably going to go buy 4 or 5 more sea cans because the price of sea cans have come back down a little bit again. They kind of doubled and tripled in price during COVID too, but now that they're not shipping as much anymore, so they're not as in as high demand.
Yeah.
So,
you go ahead.
I just want to ask, so you mentioned all these great strategies. What are some bad ones that you kind of like try to tell your like students not to get into?
Bad strategies. I don't think there's necessarily like a bad real estate strategy, but there could definitely be bad strategies for you, right? Like, so you got to really know what kind of personality you are. So whenever anybody comes into our program, you guys would know this as well, right? We do personality profiles. And we want to make sure we understand where you're coming from, what your experience is, and really what your goals are, right? And where did you get that goal from? Like, did you just go copy that goal from some other podcast or YouTube video that you watched? Or have you actually studied the basics of real estate investing? Do you actually know that that's a good fundamental strategy to get started with, right? So maybe a bad strategy would be trying to do something that is too complex right out of the gates when your skill set is like a 1 out of 10 and you're trying to do something that's like ninja level, right? And believe it or not, flipping is challenging to do, because if you don't have any construction background, if you're not good with your numbers, if you're not good with like being firm and assertive with people, because you got to manage the contractors, man. They are like, sometimes it feels like you're trying to manage crazy, because like you're dealing with roofers, framers, drywallers. Like, these guys go home and get high or drink 6 beers and they'll just sleep in or not go to work the next, like whatever, right? It's actually very uncommon to find like Mennonite type work ethic where they just go to and they just put in long hours and all that kind of stuff. I wish it was like that. Then just be like, yeah, let's just go get some great labor and go crush these flips, right? It's amazing. No, you're dealing with like derelicts and transient people for pretty much the whole job. Sometimes even like the owners of those companies too. Yeah. So flipping is something that is not for the faint of heart, but it's like it gets glorified on TV and all these like, but you don't know behind the scenes on TV. Like, they literally bought that at a tax sale auction in the States for like pennies on the dollar. Yep. Then I don't know what kind of deal they made with the store for the tiles and the flooring and all this stuff and the landscaping material. Like, where did you get this kind of ridiculous pricing? Like, we're shouting you out on the show, so you're giving us crazy prices. Then they go get like ridiculously low labor, which, I don't want to stereotype, but it's usually like immigrant labor. Yep. And sure, you made this amazing profit, right? But the average person cannot go do that. Yeah. Wholesaling as well is actually like the lowest barrier to entry. But I believe you have to have some of the highest skill set to do it really well, right? Like, you see some of the best wholesalers, they're the best talkers, negotiators, salespeople, just relationship builders, being able to relate to people, not just the average Joe not everybody can be a wholesaler. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So like, take the gradual steps and know your skill set, know yourself.
Yeah. So like, I started off with like, sort of like I was house hacking even before I knew I was house hacking. Like, I rented a 3-bedroom, it was a 2-bedroom plus a double living room. And I told 2 of my friends, like, let's all rent this together. And I stayed in the double living room. Yeah. I just put up China walls and I had a little bed behind there, and I was hardly ever there because I was working so much. Yeah. So that was kind of house hacking, which is great for anybody. Then you can house hack in a multiplex, then you can burr, but man, just make sure you're getting some guidance. You're watching and learning from people who've done this before, because there's a lot of nuances and a lot of ways you can get tripped up. And we're dealing with big investments here. It pains me when I hear that people lost money because they bought the wrong deal, they managed it poorly, they got taken by the trades. Like, make sure that you're getting some sort of like counsel and mentorship, whether it's paid or unpaid. In the beginning, just go learn from people that know what they're doing.
Yeah, because if you're doing it by yourself, you're going to run into situations where at that time they seem impossible to to like get over. But once you talk to like experts or coaches or people who are in your network, it's like, wow, everyone's dealt with that situation. Like, why am I here worried about it? You know what I mean? So I agree with that point 100%.
Yeah, if you're just always asking your best friend like for all the answers, and you're like, bro, man, you're just always asking. Like, you want to make sure that you're also in a group where you can contribute also as much as you're taking, right? So it's good to be part of a group, part of a community where everybody's helping each other, lifting each other out, and like it's okay to have an ask, because if one person doesn't have the answer, if they've already given a bunch of answers that week, then other people can step up too, right? So it's like our Telegram group has like 154 people in it. It's like people have a question, boom, they get an answer.
Just reading that chat, you learn so much.
For sure.
Right? It's crazy.
Yeah, people want the quick
How
answers.
important do you think it is to invest in yourself, right? Because like a lot of people are willing to invest in stocks, everything like that, but to pay for a course for yourself, how like important do you think it is for people to actually do?
Yeah, I think it's probably the best return you can get. And, people might hate on the coaching industry. It's like, oh, these gurus or whatever. Like, to me, a guru is someone who hasn't done the thing for a long period of time, right? So they're just kind of like, well, if I can't, people that can't teach it, right? Like, that's not what I consider myself. So it is very important to invest in yourself, because even if it's just a book, right? Like we were talking about books earlier, that $20 investment could change your life, and it will change your life. Especially if you start to compound that 20, 20, 20, it's not going to be like $80. That's going to turn into thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, just by, because that might get you into a room or inspire you to do something different or start a new income stream or whatever it might be, right? But eventually, like, you got to look at, if I want to get to, obviously you guys have goals for your podcast, for life, for business. If I want to get to where that person's been, it's worth paying for that advice, that knowledge as well, right? And I give a lot of free advice, as do you guys, right? That's why you have platforms like podcasts and YouTube and Instagram and everything else. But there's only so much you can learn from like even a couple-hour podcast.
Yeah,
you got to go deep, and you got to get like full immersion, right? And for someone to go full immersion with you and spend days and days and weekends and months with you, like, it's probably going to turn into a paid trade for service, right? Because now you're asking someone who's been there, done that, has a T-shirt or the hat that you guys have, to really like open up everything. Like, here's Pandora's box of everything, and watch out for this, watch out for that. You need this tool right at this moment. Wait for this one here. Like, they're literally guiding you, because they're like the chess player who knows the next 10 plays, or like the football coach who's been there and they know how to like rush to the finish line, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's important to invest in yourself, but you don't have to go like break the bank. I think everybody should have a budget for it. Whether maybe I remember the first time I spent $500 on anything, like it was like a weekend workshop or something like that. I was like, oh my gosh, $500, like. But you go there, you get value, and you get a return on it. It's like, okay, now that $500, I've made $5,000 from that. Cool. So now I can afford something a little bit more expensive. As long as you're getting a return on it, I've always gotten a return, because I've always done my research. I've always made sure I was in the right rooms. I always made sure I did the homework. I always made sure I used all the tools that were given to me in whatever personal development thing I did, right? It's for the people that just write the check and they think that gets them the results. That just gets you in the door, right? You got to do the work, and you got to still follow through and execute. It's super important.
Yeah. Like, you still have your own responsibility to make sure that like you're taking care of yourself throughout this program, because if you are, then it's going to work. If not, then it's like we can give you so much, right?
Yeah,
you got to do the
unfortunately, during
work.
COVID, like we also saw some speculators, right? Some people would be like, okay, well, I want to be a part of your program just because I want to ride this wave. I'm like, this isn't Bitcoin. This is like, these are tangible assets that you need to go find great deals and broker great deals, and make sure you're always on top of your numbers, and make sure you know your money and where's your money coming from, and can you handle if the interest rates go up by 2%, all these different things, right?
Yeah.
So, but now what's cool too right now is that, because like things have been going down and the economy is contracting, we're actually getting better quality people that are coming out to our events, that are actually signing up for coaching and getting mentors and all these different things. It's just a better quality of person, like a real true investor, real true business person that wants to thrive and improve their lives for the right reasons, right? And they're willing to play the long game. They're willing to put in the time and effort and be coachable and be willing and to be uncomfortable, and all the things that, those are probably my 5 things when it comes to, who's a good student or who's a student of life, right? You got to do those things. It's so important.
Was there an event or like a course you took that kind of changed everything for you that you can remember?
An event or a course. I mean, it was probably like actually doing that entrepreneurship program when I was 19. Just that the owner of that company, I mean, he is a member of like, whether it was strategic coach or EO or just some of these other entrepreneurs. So they're teaching you how to be an entrepreneur the right way, right out of the gates, as opposed to a lot of people fall into the trap of the E-myth where they're I'm an entrepreneur. Anybody can be an entrepreneur. Well, yeah, but you can't juggle all the balls that it takes to be an entrepreneur. Right? So you're going to have someone that might be more of a they're really good with their hands and they can do the thing. I'm sure you guys have seen tradespeople that are just like, how do you do that? Like, I was seeing the roofers on top of my roof the other day. I'm like, you guys are just so good at that. They're like, yeah, we've done hundreds of roofs, right? I'm like, you guys are just crazy acrobatic, like doing all this stuff that like, people just couldn't do without that number of reps, right? And then you got some people that are just like, they're such visionaries, right? Like these big billionaires, they're just like, yeah, this is my vision, like Steve Jobs. And they just like, yeah, or Bill Gates, like a computer in every single home. That's a huge vision, right? But then you also need the manager, like the person who can actually like lead the troops out into battle and manage people, projects, things, deadlines, optimizing the numbers, the profits, all that sort of stuff. So when you have all three of those in your organization, that's when you can really thrive. That's called the franchise model. That's when you can just scale and put more money into the right parts of the business. And they continue to grow because you actually have systems and the right people in place, and not just the right people, but they're in the right seats, facing the right direction, going the right, doing the right thing.
Yeah. What are some things that you are most excited for the next 6 months and to 1 year? Like, what are some things you're working on or most excited for?
Yeah, so we're building. I'm combining forces with another big leader in the real estate world. So shout out to Danielle Chasson if she sees this, or if there's a clip made on this here too. But we're combining efforts because when you think about it, like how are all big things, really big things made? They're typically not like one person who just like works and works and works and works. And okay, over 30 years they finally made something really big. It's usually like people that are combining forces in that franchise model of the three different types of people. And there's that synergistic effect where it's not just 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. It's like 1 + 1 + 1 = 9.
Yeah.
And we're all just like, now you're not just like adding or multiplying. You're actually like cubing and like quadrupling, and just like that's how you can just grow really fast, right? So combining forces because it's just a good fit. And we really want to take over the big marketplace here in Canada and even North America. So
that's awesome.
Because I really do feel like now's a great time to like armor up and like learn, so that when there are opportunities, like you're ready for them, right? Like the worst thing that happened in 2008 crash was like I was learning as the stock market was crashing, so I didn't actually capitalize on a lot of the great deals back then, the great stock prices, all that sort of stuff, because I'm like, I don't know. Now Royal Bank of Canada is at $32. Is that good, or is it going to go lower? It's like, man, I should have just freaking took out a loan and bought as much as I could, because it quadrupled over the next 5 years. Right? So. So that's not what you want to do. You don't want to be learning as the opportunities are coming your way, right? You want to have already learned, and then you can actually go capitalize on those opportunities, which I think is a great time in the market right now. So we're just trying to serve more. We're trying to provide more value for even better investments for people, because we want to help people still, and especially for the people that are putting their hands up saying, yeah, I need help, or I want to learn, or I still want financial freedom, all the things that you guys are doing.
Yeah. And where can someone get more information in regards to that? Like, is there going to be like a website, or? Yeah,
just reach out. You guys can put all my stuff in the show notes here, but it's like, just Google Kory MacKinnon. You'll find my website. You'll find my YouTube channel. You'll just send me a DM on Instagram, or go fill out an intake form on my website. Yeah, I'm pretty easy to reach. I still answer all my own DMs and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess. Is there anything more you would like to get off your chest, or you'd like to promote to our audience today?
No, I just want to encourage people. Like, don't when you look at the highest human needs in the world, the highest human need, actually, do you guys want to guess what is the highest human need?
Love, that's what I was going to guess too.
Well, love's very important.
Love advice.
Like Tony Robbins has these 6 human needs, right? They're like certainty, uncertainty, growth, contribution, all these different things, right? And when you look at the highest human need, it's actually certainty. And certainty is really correlated, really closely tied to comfort. So there's so many people out there, they will get comfortable and they'll just put up with whatever's going on, right? It's like, okay, inflation, I just keep getting stabbed with like things, just jabbed with more things going up in price, right? Like I used to, like we're obviously buying these healthy things for our kids. We buy these like sprouted Ezekiel breads and stuff like that. They used to be $6, and then they're $7, then they're $8. But now if you want the raisins in it, it was like literally $13.50 at the grocery store. I'm like, kids, we're just not eating raisin bread anymore, right? So, unfortunately, because even though I make good money, I'm still frugal with things like that.
Yeah.
So don't get comfortable, right? Like, because nothing ever happens when you're comfortable, right? And if you look at like whether you're building a muscle or anything in life, it comes by like breaking it down a little bit, getting uncomfortable, pushing outside your comfort zone, doing more than what you thought you could do, putting a deadline on something, just saying, I'm going to go do this by this date. You want to run a marathon? go sign up for the marathon and go sign up for the VIP, buy the jacket, buy the everything, front of the row, whatever, more expensive. So then you're actually committed to it, right? So just commit to yourself, and because there's great opportunities during downturn recessions, right? People, all the pretenders and wannabes get out of the game. They just like, oh, it's too expensive. I got to pay more per click, or, got to pay more for marketing, for market share, whatever. It's like, no, this is a great time to take market share and to move ahead. And if you can make it through tough times, you can make it through anything. Right, so you guys are actually maybe doing a podcast during a more challenging time. It was during COVID. So many people were listening to podcasts, right? Yeah. Great way to grow a channel. But if you can grow a channel during a more challenging time, then you'll just thrive more later, right? So you're actually putting in the harder reps now. Don't be afraid to put in the harder reps now, so you actually thrive more in the future. It's super important, right? Otherwise, you'll just have to work until who knows when, right? 65, 70, 75. Like, it's not a way to live life, right? So do what you can when you're young. Be smart about it. Always find a way to enjoy life, and you don't have to live frugally your whole life. Like, always find a way to enjoy the fruits of your labor as you go, right? Maybe it might not be every single day. Like, I have friends of mine, they're like, it gets to the point where they can take 1 week off a month, and then 2 weeks off a month, and it might only be like, I only work 1 week a month because I'm kind of semi-retired, but I don't want to fully retire, right? So it's levels and stages, right? Just make sure you don't get stuck and don't stay comfortable.
For sure. Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kory, for coming on. You've been, my mentor, my coach, and thank you so much for everything that you've done to me, because you've literally changed my mindset on a lot of different things, and even inspired like me, which helped inspire my friends. Like I remember you saying that you got a coach because I kept on talking about my coach. You know what I mean? So like, thank you for all the service that you provide for all those that that you help, and thank you for coming on the podcast. It was one of those where we literally months ago, I'm like, we're gonna get Kory here one time. We're gonna get Kory
about this for a while, and that's probably the best blessing. Like, when I can hear that anything that I've done or said just gets paid for, and that's huge. That's the goal.
No, and I've seen like his growth, and honestly, like, just sitting here talking to you, like hearing the information, like even how you've kind of put it to us, like I feel really inspired, and also I can like take a lot away from this. So like, whoever's watching it, like, I guarantee you they'll get the same value that I felt I got. So I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, it's one of the selfish benefits of having a podcast, right? You guys pick up a couple of things. Now, that's why I'm starting up a podcast too in October. Just, because selfishly I might learn something from the guests as well, and just pay that message forward and just to more people. Yeah.
And make sure, for all of you who actually made it this far, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll add all of the ways you can contact and connect with Kory as well on the page as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Peace.